Frowned on by the Writers Guild, by the way. But they had enough money for one writer. Frank was a friend of one of the producers. I'm a friend of Yakov.
So I just decided,
they said, all right, go in this room together, see if you like each other, and if you do, you got the job. So we just sat down like, I like you, you like me. Yep,
okay. We heard that when they came back in, you two were kissing. So that was going well.
A little too far. But from like Wheels Up in Springfield, Mass, where you're from, right?
Right.
To kissing this guy to get a job. Like, how much time was that?
About 4 years. In that time, I think I wrote 11 spec scripts. Because I had no idea what I was doing. I had no training. I went to a bookshop called Larry Edmunds Hollywood Bookstore or something, and they used to sell used TV scripts. And so you could buy, like, for $4. I bought some used Taxi scripts and some Barney Millers, and I just started kind of studying them like textbooks. And you start to, the more you read them, you start to see the formula and the patterns of, like, how you build to the commercial and shit like that.
That's so great.
Yeah.
That's so great. And now, do you remember the joke? The first joke that you sold to Yakov that he used? Do you remember it?
Oh God, I think it was around the time there was a period in the '80s where several Russian leaders had died kind of close to each other, like Brezhnev. It was something. The punchline was something like, the Russian leaders are dying so fast they have a new show called Tsar Search. That was
That's great. That's still funny. Yeah, it's funny. I remember one of those leaders who died was Yuri Andropov. And I remember I was sick one night and I got to stay up and watch television, and I was watching Yuri Andropov's funeral on PBS. I don't know why.
I mean, if you go back to YouTube and ever just watch some of those Yuri Andropov highlights,
they're a killer. Yeah.
See, and even you just saying Yuri Andropov, like old habits, like I immediately go back to, like, I got to call Yakov, something about Yuri and dropped off the face of the earth.
Oh God, that's funny. What a great story. And is Yakov still with us?
Yes, he still performs at the Comedy Store, and I think he has a theater down in Branson, Missouri.
Oh, good for him.
Doesn't Brian still write for him occasionally?
Not anymore, but he did for a while. When I started working on What a Country, Brian was out here also trying to break in, so Brian took over the joke writing for Yakov.
Amazing.
And
that's great.
Yeah. So it was fun.
And we'll do a mini deep dive into Brian a little later, because it's worth talking about. But I just to linger on What a Country for a moment, because I watched a couple episodes, and it's one of those things where, like, it's very sitcom-y, it's very 80s, but there are legit laughs and funny lines all the way through in a way that almost doesn't exist in a lot of shows today. But first of all, you had, as the cast was kind of interesting, you had Vijay Armitage, who was the sort of resident Indian who was trying to get a citizenship into the United States, and he was a famous tennis player from India, and he was in the movie Octopussy. That's where I remember him from. He played sort of James Bond's Indian contact in Octopussy, and he even had a catchphrase which was "No problem." And then I remember when he died, Roger Moore somberly closes his eyelids and says, "No more problems." But I noticed that VJ was really scoring. He seemed like he was kind of a good weapon in that show.
Yeah, he just had that kind of wide-eyed, innocent, full-hearted delivery.
Totally.
That later became, well, I guess what, like, the character Fez on That 70s Show was.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
There's a heart that you feel with each line delivery or something. Yeah.
You're totally right about that. I was also struck by how much Yakov Smirnoff looks like Judd Apatow. I don't know if you ever noticed that.
Oh, wow. No, I never thought of that.
I was watching the show and I'm like, from a distance, that's Judd Apatow. Tell me different. And then I texted you this. I happened to watch an episode where Don Knotts made his first appearance on the show. And Don Knotts, for those of you listening who don't know, he was Mr. Furley on Three's Company. He was Barney Fife on the Andy Griffith Show. And so he's like TV royalty.
Yeah.
And you guys set it up in a way where you couldn't really tell he was there. He was on stage, and then he sort of turns and delivers his first line. And I texted you this. It was like the Beatles walked out on stage. It was incredible, the reaction it got.
It was great. He was hired. He wasn't on the show from the beginning. He was brought in partway through the season, replacing an actress who had played the character before him. She had played the school principal, and she was a very good actress, but comedy was not like her first thing. So the guys who created the show used to work on Three's Company and had a relationship with Don Knotts and got him to do it. So they decided not to tell anybody that he was going to be in the show. And it's, and hearing it, like when they were setting it up, it's like, well, this is never going to work. Somebody's going to see him or somebody's going to say something.
Yeah.
And they were able to keep it quiet. And he turned around and did that, whatever the first joke was. And you're right. I mean, it was insanity. In my head, I was like, because I love Don Knotts. Don Knotts would probably be in my top 5 TV people who make me laugh the second they're on screen.
Oh, that's a good topic.
But it just wouldn't stop. It was one of we finally just had to stop rolling. Because the audience would, I don't know if they were that fucking bored prior to that.
It was great. So
it's hard to understand today how famous those people were because I couldn't name 5 people starring in sitcoms now if you asked me.
Right, yeah.
But there was a time when Yakov Smirnoff came into Cape 104, the Cape radio station, and they were saying, the 20th caller will get Yakov Smirnoff tickets or whatever. And I used to call that radio station all the time and put on voices, and they'd put me on the air. I'd be like, I want to hear Fire by Jimi Hendrix. Give me that fire. And they put me on. Anyway, so I called, and they were like, you're caller number 20, and you're on with Yakov. And I was so intimidated by the fact that it was the Yakov Smirnoff on the phone that I just hung up.
Your first brush with fame. Yeah. No, you don't get that experience.
It was like being on the phone with Tom Cruise now or something.
Right.
I'm not making light of it. He was super famous.
Right.
Well, what a country. It didn't last very long. It must have 2 seasons, I think.
It was 1 season, 26 episodes.
Okay. And I'm sure, there was a lot of chatter amongst the executives ratings are poor. And meanwhile, I bet you had 21 million viewers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which is just insane. Just